Welcome to Royal Math Podcast. Today we'll be looking at Lesson 6-2, finding the equation in a word problem and then solving. So today we are going to look at the following word problem. A delivery service charges $1.25 for each delivery, plus 75 cents for each mile the driver travels. The service charged the customer $5.75 for a delivery. Write an equation and solve for M, the number of miles the driver could have traveled for the delivery. So in order to extrapolate what the equation is from this word problem, I find it's easiest to go ahead and look for the variable first. So this word problem directly tells us what the variable is. It says solve for M, which is the number of miles that the driver could have traveled. So I'm going to go ahead and mark the text, the number of miles, and of course what the variable is, and I'm going to go ahead and write the variable right there. So now, we know what the variable is. Now we have to find out what the coefficient is. And the coefficient is the number that multiplies the variable. So I need to look for one of the other numbers that talks about the same thing that the variable is, which is the number of miles. So let's go in order and look. First, we have $1.25. Now it says it's for each delivery. So that doesn't say anything about miles. So now let's look at the next number. The next number is 75 cents. And what does it say it's for? Each mile. So therefore, we know it is related to the variable. And so our coefficient is 0.75. Okay? Now, the constant is the number that occurs one time and is not going to change. So we already found that number. The delivery service charges $1.25 for each delivery. It's not going to change. It will remain the same. So that is our constant, $1.25. Okay? And now, last but not least, we have to write and find our answer, which just happens to be the next number, which states that the service charged the customer $5.75. So we know our total is $5.75. So now, we have to do a couple different things. Step one is the inverse operation of the constant. So what I need to do is I need to go ahead, let me go ahead and take this equation that we wrote, and I'm going to go ahead and move it over here, get it out of the way a little bit. Let's clean this up a little bit right here. All right, so I need to do inverse operation of the constant. So to do that, what is the inverse operation? The inverse, first off, means to do the opposite. So I'm going to do the opposite of the operation that the constant is doing. So the constant is right now a positive number, or it's adding, so therefore the opposite of that would be to subtract the same value as the constant. So the constant's $1.25, so I'm going to subtract $1.25 from each side of the equal sign. When I subtract $1.25 from $1.25, I get my zero pair. It is eliminated. Now, when I subtract $5.75 with $1.25, I end up with $4.50. So now, next step, or before I start the next step, what I need to do is I need to bring down the coefficient and the variable. That way we keep it up with the current line. So let's go ahead and do that. So we have 0.75 M equals $4.50. So now I have to move on to my next step. Step 2, inverse operation of the coefficient. So let's go ahead and get that right down next to where we're going to be doing the step. And so now, the coefficient is the number that is multiplying the variable. Therefore, the opposite operation of multiplying is dividing. So I am going to be doing dividing of the coefficient and variable, and also of the answer that we have at this point, which is $4.50. When I'm divide 0.75 by 0.75, that basically cancels it out, and I am left with M, just the variable. So M equals. So now, once that I do the inverse operation to the answer, once I divide 4.5 by 0.75, I will have my answer. So let's go ahead, and 4.5 goes inside the division house, and 0.75 goes outside the division house. So I cannot divide with a decimal on the outside, so I need to kick the ball to the wall and move my decimal over here. So now I need to see how many times 75 will go into 450. And it just happens that 75 will go into 450 6 times evenly. So we know that the amount of miles driven, which is M, is 6. So the delivery service charged $1.25 for the delivery, plus 75 cents times 6, which came out to a grand total of $5.75. Thank you for watching the Royal Math Podcast. See you around like a donut.